morning, and welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. It is... What is today? Today is Wednesday. My whole week's kind of fucked up, because I had car issues, and that is kind of a fun thing. I'll tell that story briefly before I get into the bigger story, as evidenced in the title. So I have my car that I get to and from work, and I record this podcast on my way to and from work. And I'm getting ready to leave on Monday morning, and I go to start my car. My car won't start. So I'm like, son of a bitch, my battery is fucked. So I have Progressive, so I call Roadside, $95, because Roadside isn't covered on the basic plan. And they sent someone out. Now, I got in my car at like 9:15. Roadside doesn't show up until 12:55. And Roadside shows up, and it's this guy in a 4-door sedan. It's not like a truck or anything. And he's got, and they told me when they called, like, this guy's gonna come out. If he comes out and you try, and he will jump your car. If he can't jump your car, he's gonna have a battery that he can sell to you, and you can install it right there. So I'm like, alright, fair enough. That's not a bad idea. That's actually pretty good service, if that's the case. So, he shows up. He has this charging, like, thing. And, I don't know what the hell that thing's called. It's like a mobile car charger. It's like a boxy thing with a handle on it that's got leads to attach to your battery, and it'll charge your battery. It's the same as if you were jumping in the car by attaching it to another car's battery. I don't know what it's called. I'm not a car person that knows how cars work or anything. So, whatever. He shows up with that. He tries it for like 3 minutes, tries to start the car. It still doesn't work, but it does move a little bit more that time, which indicates to me that it was charging, but not enough in that short amount of time. He goes, alright, can't sell you the battery. The car won't charge. You need a new battery entirely. Let me call into the warehouse and see if they have a new battery. Now, I was under the impression that when I submitted my car's information to Progressive and they have my VIN number and all of that, they can just look up they can just have that ready, and then he can show up with said battery. Not the case. So he calls to his warehouse and he goes, okay, we have your battery. It's going to be $300. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. So I call for a ride to work, because at this point my boss has already been bothering me. We need you here. People are out sick. I need you here. So I'm like, alright, I'll get in whenever I can. Meanwhile, it's now 2 o'clock, and I'm showing up at work at 2 o'clock when I leave at 5. So, I'm like, what's the point of this exactly? So, whatever. While I'm at work, I'm working, but I'm also trying to get my hands on a battery that's not going to cost me a substantial amount of money, because I'm not looking to pay that much. Call around, call my dealer where I bought the car. They tell me to go to hell. Well, they didn't tell me that. That's me. They kept me on hold for 10 minutes, and then nothing came of it. So, called them, called Walmart. Walmart had a battery. Cool, alright. Got AAA, because I'm not paying another $95, and then called Progressive to complain about the $95. I'm like, I'm not paying $95 for what essentially is a consult, where he shows up and asks if he can sell me a battery. Because nothing ever actually came of it. So, the next day, call AAA. AAA is a little faster. They get to me at around 11. And I get to Walmart. The difference was, though, when AAA came, they didn't send a tow truck, because I explained the situation. They're like, alright, we're going to send someone out who can jump your car. And if that doesn't work, we will send someone out. He will call for a tow truck, and then they will take you wherever you need to go. That company, and you can ride with the person who doesn't get a new Uber. So I'm like, alright, great, fine by me. That all sounds great. So I'm sitting there waiting. Guy shows up, and he comes out, looks at the car, goes, your battery's completely dead. We need to we'll jump it, but you'll have enough to get to the mechanic. That's it. You will not have enough to get anywhere else. I'm like, alright, fair enough. Go to go to Walmart. They have the battery for $99. 2.5 hours later, I am out with my car, and I get to work around 3 o'clock. And that has been the last 2 days with this car nonsense. So I am now on my way to work, dealing with that. So it has not been a fun 2 days. Now, what we're talking about is the release date shift. We talked about Marvel's problem sandwich, I called it, where what they did was they took the bad news, squeezed it between what is ostensibly good news, and then, a bit of neutral news. That way you don't hear about the bad news being the departure of the Blade director. But then this happened where they shift the release dates. And on the one hand, I do really appreciate the transparency. I like Marvel doing this and being like, okay, we're making these movies, these are the movies that are coming, and we're doing that. It does have a very Nintendo feel to it, where it's like they're very forthcoming about what's happening. They are, like, all of that is very helpful from a gameplay, from a standpoint of, from a standpoint of keeping the audience in tune with expectations, and we know what's coming. On the other hand, if you look at Nintendo, if you look at Sony with their State of Play, or you look at any company that does this, usually you don't announce things unless you have a solid release that you are definitely going to hit. Because you do not want to delay, because it does not look good when you delay. It's one thing to delay due to COVID, which a lot of companies did do, because COVID was kind of a global thing that was unavoidable and everyone was impacted by. The delaying for this reason doesn't look good. So we got a bunch of shifts. So right now, the November 3rd, 2023 date that was previously held by Blade is no longer held by Blade, because Blade lost its director. They're pushing it back to September of 2024, the date that was previously held by Deadpool 3. Now, if you're wondering, well, November 3rd, that's not prime real estate, because there's nothing coming out until Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. What could be going there? And you're probably thinking about that, and the answer is Dune Part 2 has moved to that date. Me personally, I would have moved Dune into, what's it called? I would have moved Dune into, okay, motherfuckers. You gonna let me over, or are we gonna... I would have moved Dune to, what's it called? To October. Because October is looking pretty light next year, and they did have success in October the last time they released a movie in October, but the issue is there is this kind of like, what's it called? There is kind of this this weird like what's the one for here? This motherfucking truck. I'm not entirely sure why they wouldn't move it there, but they did move it into that release date. So they do have some breathing room between them and the new Hunger Games movie. Then there is the release of, what's it called? The release of, so where does Deadpool get moved to? That's the next question. Deadpool got moved to the November date, which is Fantastic Four. So that's cool. I mean, so it's still coming out that same year. It's just coming out 2 months later. So then where does Fantastic Four go? Fantastic Four is moving to February. And then that February movie is moving. There was a February movie on the release calendar, but there was no title attached. It was just Untitled Marvel Movie, February 2025. So where does that move? That gets moved to November, which is the release date of Secret Wars. Secret Wars gets moved to May 2026, which honestly probably should have been the plan from the beginning. They probably should have released Secret Wars a year after, like they did with Infinity War and Endgame. That would have been the smart thing to do. Now, I think that there is this kind of broader, like, question of, well, what are these movies? Well, I think that if we have a movie that was originally scheduled to come out before Kang Dynasty, which is keeping its release date in May, if we have a movie that was slated to come out in May, and that was slated to come out in February before that, and then is now coming out in between the two, I think it's safe to say that movie is probably going to be a Captain Marvel-esque, not taking place in the interim, but taking place before whatever it is. So maybe that's Armor Wars, because it's far enough out where they can put Armor Wars on that slot and probably hit that release date. But who knows? And then there are a bunch of other release dates going into Phase 7, 8, and 9, which will be after 2026. And I think the 2026 movie that was in that May slot has just been completely removed from the release slate, whatever that was going to be. But because audiences don't know what that is, it's not a huge deal. It's probably just take one of the other slots or get moved somewhere else in the future. And you're probably wondering, why move a specific movie? Why go through that instead of just taking it off and putting a new one on? The untitled slots are to keep track of it for internal use, so they can keep track of what's where. If they move an untitled slot, it means whatever movie, it is untitled for us, the audience, not untitled for them within Marvel Studios. Marvel Studios knows what's going in that slot, they just haven't announced it yet. So by moving that date and not deleting and putting a new one up, they are, for internal use, keeping track of the fact that this date was this movie that was going to come out on this date. This movie is now coming out on this date. So it's just a semantic change more than anything else. What else was there? And the thing is too, it's again, because this is happening so soon after the big release date announcements, it's not the greatest optics of the situation. Because look, I mean, it's understandable that because of COVID you're moving release dates around. The problem is, it appears now that this happening does give away. Blade is apparently integral to Phase 6 and to Secret Wars, and all of that. Because if it wasn't the case, they wouldn't have to relocate everything to accommodate. They can just bump it up into that February slot. I think it is apparent that Blade has to come out before Fantastic Four, otherwise they wouldn't have moved Fantastic Four down to February. I feel like that's kind of a weird situation altogether. And had they not been so forthcoming, this would impact us less. And honestly, it's something that we've noticed since Endgame. And look, again, a lot of it's COVID related, but there's also been a lot of production delays. And just because they're announcing so much happening, that it means that they're doing too much. I think the case can be made that Feige probably needs someone who is also overseeing the Disney Plus stuff. That was the thing. I remember when the deal with Spider-Man was falling through. The deal that would bring him back for No Way Home, and then also bring him in for what's it called? And then also bring him in for what was the other one called? He's got one more crossover, I think, in his contract. Don't quote me on that. I'm just fairly certain that's the case. He's got one more crossover in his contract. But either way, we have that, and he's coming in for that. Problem is, with that deal, people were saying, look, I mean, Disney wants a bigger cut of the profit, and it's understandable considering that Kevin Feige is taking a large and active role in developing these movies. They want to do a 50-50 profit and cost split, which is equitable. And considering that Feige is doing so much work and licensing, really what that is them licensing their characters to Sony, because you're licensing Nick Fury, you're licensing Doctor Strange, you're licensing Tony Stark to Sony so they can use them in their Sony movie, while Sony is also licensing back Spider-Man and, Ned in two cases for use in in a crossover movie, and that is kind of what the big difference is. I don't quite understand why the thought process is then it was he's got all these shows on Disney Plus that he's working on. He's got all of this stuff happening. He may be spreading himself too thin by also overseeing Spider-Man too. And it's not an inaccurate assessment, I don't think. But what they need is someone to oversee Disney Plus, but someone who is like Kevin Feige. Like, you don't just need a studio suit who's going to show up and start doing for lack of a better word, Warner Brothers is done with the DC universe, and come in and start doing what do we think is going to make this better. And it's like, well, let the people do what they want to do. And by and large, almost to a fault, Phase 4 has been full of directors doing whatever they want to do. Because people gave Marvel shit for years. Like, why are you not letting the directors do what they want to do? Why are the directors being, kind of shoehorned into the system? And it's like, then they let them, then Eternals happens, and it's like, why are they not doing the exact same thing they always do? It's too different. And it's like, well, just shut the fuck up then. Like, that's the thing, is you would think that they would have learned from Star Wars that it's like, we're not going to please everyone, and we're definitely not going to please the ones who are like, you're not letting the directors do what they want to do. Because when you look at what happened with Star Wars, there were those complaints. And again, totally valid complaints. You're not letting the directors execute their vision. You are, hamstringing them into your storyline. Let them do what they want. Let them do something new and interesting. All completely valid criticisms, all completely valid thought processes. And the issue is, you're not going to please everyone, so don't just look at what happened with the sequels, where it's like, this is too different, this is too similar. Then you let Rian Johnson come in, and people aren't happy with that either. It's like, well, now this is too similar, this is too different from what we liked. And then they come back, and then you end up with a thing that pleases nobody. So just do what you're gonna do and call it a day. And I don't know. I feel like there's definitely a better movie to be executed. And again, I'm going to invoke Iwata. A delayed game can be good, but a game that makes its deadline that is bad will always be bad. And I think if you're going to push it right. And that is the right move. That said, look, at the end of the day, it's not like that November release date is now empty and there's nothing there to go and see, because now I can go see Dune 2 weeks earlier. And I'm thrilled about that. Like, I will happily go see Dune earlier than wanted. I've been looking forward to that movie. Like, I think that movie is my most anticipated movie of next year, is Dune Part 2. Because Dune Part 1 is just fantastic. It is a great movie. Everything about it is so well done and so perfect. I love that movie. That's one of my favorite movies of last year. That said, I do not think that what's it called? I do not think that I do not think that Marvel is quite as bad. Obviously, will make it seem. I think moving the release dates. I just think that the biggest issue is they should take a page from Nintendo's book and take a page from Sony's book and take a page from all of that. Because here's the thing. There is no way that in July they did not know that Blade was in a production delay. Because I seem to recall Blade was supposed to enter production in July. And it still hasn't. And most recently it was scheduled to be in production in November. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they would have been like, okay, we probably shouldn't announce this just in case it doesn't hit its date. And I think that that's part of the problem. Like, yeah, there are all these untitled dates, but maybe one more untitled date would have made it a little bit clearer. And the thing is, too, I understand you can't, like, the amount that things changed between announcing Blade on that November date and then now the new date. But the thing is, too, it's like, what, you didn't know that when you announced Deadpool 3? 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. Like, they announced Deadpool 2, like, if it was 2 weeks ago, that's a long time. You didn't know you were going to do that because the trailer they put up with the logo treatment and all of that shows that September date. Like, you would have been better off just putting it, like, waiting, announcing the release date shifts, and then putting out a Deadpool trailer. Now it's not 2 stories, and then it's only 1, and the Deadpool trailer is overriding the whole thing. It's just a weird decision all around. But we'll wrap up there for today. And we'll be back with anything else that happens as it happens. So until then, have a great rest of your week.